Subscribe to Film Companion for your film fix. Hit the bell icon so you never miss an update.
Hi.
Hi, Aasif. It's great to have you on Film Companion. How are you doing? These are very strange times.
I know, aren't they? I'm doing fine. I can't complain. I mean, I can. I can complain a lot, but I won't. Yeah, we're good. You know, we recently had a baby, so our entire lockdown has been in the company of an infant, a brand new life infant in our world. So that's made things more bearable and more complicated as well. I know people are going through a really hard time with this thing, and I'm one of the lucky ones, so I can't complain.
Fair enough. And it's coming to a new show, Evil, which it airs here on Z Cafe. It's a really tough show to describe. In some senses, it's sort of a psychological thriller. It's a procedural drama. It's horror. Somebody described it as The Exorcist meets The X-Files. How would you describe it?
That's actually not bad. The Exorcist meets X-Files. Yeah, it's all of those things. I think I think actually you described it really well. It's a psychological thriller. There's a horror element to it. I think you know, when you look at it at first blush, you think like, oh, this is a horror show, but it really is so much more than that. It actually deals with just in terms of the plot. It's about three characters who are investigating paranormal activity. And they're sent out by the Catholic Church to investigate these these happenings that you can't explain. And sometimes they are explainable through science or psychology, or sometimes they're not explainable. But it really goes much deeper often than that. You know, one of our episodes is about a psychotic child, which is, you know, we have an episode about exorcism, and there's demons and ghosts and stuff that exist in the show, but it's not just about that. It's, you know, one episode, like I said, is about this psychotic child. Is he possessed? Is he not possessed? Or is he just having a psychotic breakdown? You know, and these things kind of start to play. And what is quote unquote evil? Does it even exist? That conversation between faith and science, you know, how does that conversation happen? So it goes into places that I think are unexpected and more and deeper than you might think.
But we obviously know you from so many Hollywood movies. We've seen you in sort of The Proposal, The Internship, which I love, Million Dollar Arm. What are you most recognized for? What do people come up to you for most?
Gosh, you know, it's interesting. I'm one of those people that I've gotten to do a lot of different things in my career, and I've been very fortunate in that. And I can often tell when people come up to me what they know me from. You know, if it's The Proposal, it might be like a woman on the street goes, "Oh, I see The Proposal. I've watched it 50 times." You know, or if it's somebody who looks more like you, a young guy, you know, sort of, if you're in New York, I might say you live in Brooklyn or something, you know, and probably seen like some TV show or The Internship or The Daily Show is a big one that I get recognized for. You know, different things. I think people have seen some of my theater work. But, you know, so I can't. I'm always surprised at the things that people have seen over the years. It's just that I've been doing this for a long time. So I have different projects that I can sort of. If it's a homeless guy, he's probably seen this show Oz on HBO that I did many years ago.
Fair enough.
You know, if it's a young kid, the Spider-Man 2 fans are like crazy. Like they just like you know, blow up my Instagram. They're great. I love them. But you know, I can sometimes tell if like they're like, oh, Spider-Man 2, you know, which is, I'm amazed because I did that so many years ago. But still, it has a huge fan base. You know.
And you mentioned obviously The Daily Show. You were a correspondent, I think, for like, is it 7 years? I was watching
more like almost 9 years.
Wow. I was watching some of your clips from that today, and it's scary how much those clips haven't aged. You know, all of those issues still feel so relevant today.
Right.
Isn't that strange?
It's I mean, it's disappointing, right? Like that, you know, there's some. I mean, I did a piece that was incredibly popular when I was on The Daily Show on voter suppression, and that went viral, and it was back in 2010, I think, or maybe a little bit after that. But that piece still holds up today. Voter suppression is still a thing that we're dealing with in this 2020 election, and will be dealing with, and you know, all the the not dealing with, but the idea, the narrative about how it's dangerous, and when the numbers are actually so small. So yeah, it really definitely is scary that in so many ways, as we move forward, we also move backward at the same time.
And do you feel comedy shows like The Daily Show, you get the sense that their significance has really gone up over time? It feels like today so many more people rely on them to sort of stay informed and get perspective. So do you feel those shows are now more important than ever before?
Well, what's interesting is when we were doing The Daily Show, when Jon Stewart was the host, we were the only game in town. We were the only ones doing the satirical news format. Now it feels like there are many satirical news shows out there. It's kind of become its own genre of news. And I also found that as we became more popular, the regular news itself started to follow our satirical model. That whole premise of like seeing George Bush say something on a screen and then seeing him say exactly the opposite thing 6 months later, and then having a debate with himself, debating this issue from like 6 months in the past to 6 months. That was started on The Daily Show. We started that sort of format of making fun of him by having him debate himself over the same issue, which now gets used in news, regular news, like CNN and other places that are doing that same kind of format. So I think it is, it is sort of like sometimes the greatest truths come from the clowns, Shakespeare knew that. He always put the words of the truth in the mouth of the jester. And so that's just been an age-old, and satire has always been a way to pop the balloon, has been, and any society that shuts down satire or suppresses comedy, satire, or that bursting of the bubble, we should question and we should be wary of,
And you've also talked a lot about how you moved to New York in your 20s to pursue acting. And initially, as a brown actor, most of the opportunity you got was sort of cab drivers and lab coats and things like that. Was there a specific turning point in your career where you really felt that you started getting offers that weren't putting you in a box?
I mean, there were many points, right? Like, I think my career has not been like, obviously The Daily Show was a major pivot point for me, and it changed. It went from relative obscurity to being a person who people knew and whose name people knew, and I had that name recognition, and that changed my career in a fundamental way. It definitely turned a corner for me in that way. But before that, I did a play called Sakina's Restaurant, which was the first Indian American play done by an Indian American about an Indian American family that was done in the mainstream New York stage. And I did that in 1998 the first time. And Ismail Merchant came and saw it, and he cast me in his movie based on seeing me in that play. And then, so that was another pivot point for me. So there were many sort of moments throughout my career of like moments where my career changed. The Daily Show probably was the most significant and had the greatest change in my career, was after The Daily Show.
And you're someone who's also written a lot of projects. It's something that you also do alongside acting. How important do you feel it is as sort of an actor from a minority community to have that skill when you're not getting the roles that, a lot of other people would get? How important do you think it is for that actor to be able to create work as well and hone that skill?
I mean, I think it's like, for me, it was a lifesaver, right? Because for me, when I was starting out in the business in the US, I was getting these roles that were very, perfunctory, the cab driver, 2 lines here, deli or whatever, so there were no roles being written for brown people. There were no roles being written for South Asians, not substantial roles. So for me, the writing was a way out of that. I started writing because I wanted to play characters that, my white friends got to play on stage, or in, like people with substance, people with complexity, characters with nuance. And so I started writing those characters, and luckily, because I was able to, I was able to like write Sakina's Restaurant, which I talked about earlier, and other things. You know, I wrote the movie Today Special because nobody was casting me as the lead in their movie at that time because there were no brown leads. So I wrote a character that was a brown guy in a restaurant about a family, and it was inspired by my own life. And you know, and
it's a wonderful movie.
Thank you very much. And so it, you know, that was all came out of a necessity. You know, like the mother of invention. You know, and so. So it was important for me. I don't know how important it is for everyone. It was definitely important for me to be able to use that as a way to tell stories that I wanted to tell and that I felt like were not being told at that time. And now you see, you know, obviously a lot of people out there are creating those stories. And I think that is the most important thing. Ultimately, like we're in a world now, I think also where we're realizing the economic value. A lot of these places like Netflix and other places are seeing the economic value of telling stories with South Asian themes, South Asian content, and global stories. And I think we're now getting into that point where, at least today, we are telling more global stories and there's more of an appetite for more global stories. So I think that's a good thing.
And just speaking of global stories, I wanted to ask you about Million Dollar Arm. I know you shot part of that movie in India. So what are your memories of shooting here? How was that experience?
Amazing. I had never gotten to work on a project in India before, and it was so it was amazing. You know, like just I have family in India. I've come back to visit many times. It's very much a place where, you know, I hang out with my family mostly. So to work within the Indian film industry and how efficient everyone was, and how navigating a shooting production schedule within the streets of Mumbai with all of that, you know, traffic and extras, and it was really remarkable. And I remember there was one scene that we did, and Jon Hamm had never been to India before, you know. And I remember like we had all these extras. I think it was in Lucknow, and we had all these extras, and Jon Hamm was there with me and a couple of other actors, and the extras were leaving because it was too hot, and we're having them all stand out there in the heat, 100 degrees, and they all started to go home. And, you know, of course, we're shooting the scene and the continuity is going to get messed up. It's like all the extras leave and go home. So I remember one of the actors got on the microphone and he said to the Indian extras, he said, listen, in Hindi, and I won't, you know, he said, let's show this Gora, this white guy, what Indians are made of and how we can stand here in the heat and not have, you know. And all these extras suddenly just came back and they were like, you know, and it was like a Jai Hind moment, you know, like, and they were like, all came back. And I was like, this is, and Jon Hamm looked over at me and he whispered, he said, I don't know what he said, but I think it had something to do with me. And I said, it had a lot to do with you. So, you know, but it was a really remarkable, and it was like India itself. It was far too much to explain in one sentence, you know?
That's very accurate. Thank you so much for your time, and congratulations on getting renewed for season 2. And we really look forward to watching it here on Z Cafe. Thank you so much, Aasif.
Thank you so much. Thanks.
Thank you.